Hey guys, Victoria here with Volt Athletics. Today we're talking with Brady Welsh, former Division One collegiate strength coach. Brady and I go way back. We worked together at IMG Academy and have been friends ever since. I have been lucky to watch Brady climb the ladder and see his dreams come true. He went from IMG Academy to Temple basketball, where he was the head of their performance there. Then he went on to Purdue University men's basketball, and then most recently, he was at the University of Kentucky working with the men's basketball team. So, Brady, hi. Thanks for joining us.
Victoria, Volt, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Today, we're going to talk about it's May, it's summer, summer's approaching. Sport coaches and strength coaches, this is the time of year that they crank out their summer packets, the infamous summer packets that get tossed around and a bunch of mishmash put together. And I think coaches, both sport coaches and strength coaches, are overwhelmed with all the resources and tools that are out there. And people try to put together the most elaborate summer packets for their athletes. And I think it's just a great time of year to talk about and reinforce really truly what's important about summer training, what we need to include in summer training, and really how to execute that. So I know you've worked in a lot of institutions where you do have to put together a summer packet, and conditions are different everywhere. The expectations are different everywhere. And so really excited to hear your point of view and for you to share with everyone listening. Really, what's your take on summer packets? What should in your eyes, a complete summer training packet include?
It's best if you just start with understanding the basics and what you really need to accomplish and not getting lost in what's new. A lot of people kind of get lost in what's new and they might dive down this rabbit hole of all these different things that you cannot include. But the reality is what do you need to reinforce and what is going to put you in the best position come season, that whenever you're really training and you're moving throughout the year, what is that foundation going to really look like? So I think you always just go back to the basics of squat, hinge, push, pull, lunge, jump, rotate, and run. So make sure that you break all those things down. You're building all those foundations up. It's progressive, but it's also knowing your audience as well and making them feel important and making them feel heard, of understanding where are they whenever they're actually completing these summer packets. What do they actually have? Giving them feedback, making them feel like you're actually there without necessarily being there. That's the hardest part, right? That's why, any online platform or even just sending those, you have to figure out a way to bring them that personal aspect. And that's how you're going to get probably the most compliance. And then you're going to be able to get the most out of it. If you give them something crazy elaborate and then you're not discussing with them on a consistent basis or even giving them feedback, you're probably not even eliciting the response that you're really even looking for. So really just trying to build that foundation, put yourself in a good position that whenever it comes time that you're really in there coaching them or you're giving them that consistent feedback, that you're really getting out of it what you want to do.
And keep it as simple as possible, because most cases, most of our coaches don't have the ability to oversee their athletes during the summertime. They go home, they're out of sight. And so you really have to know your athlete, right? Can you trust them to do something really elaborate, or is the basic going to be sufficient?
Correct.
So let's segue that. Thank you for segueing that. Let's segue that into, I think, is the most challenging part of a summer training in general, especially when your athletes go home. Coaches often struggle with engagements, holding their athletes accountable. Will keep off the table some of the compliance restraints that some coaches run into over the summertime. But what has worked for you in the past? What can you suggest to other coaches out there on how to keep their athletes motivated, and how do you keep them engaged over the summer? It's a long stretch of time.
Yeah, I think that word engaged, like you have to be engaged. You have to understand where they're at. You got to understand what they like, what they don't like. The reality is if you program a whole bunch of stuff that they don't understand or they don't like, chances are you're probably not going to get great results from it. They're either just going to skip it, they're going to do the stuff that they want to do, or something else. So if you can try to figure out, okay, meet them a little bit where they are and then bring them along to the positions that you want them to be in, that's how you're going to get the most engagement. Sometimes for coaches, it's a little bit harder kind of putting your pride aside a little bit of saying, well, this is the perfect program. This is what's going to make them the best basketball player. Well, maybe what you believe isn't always what you're going to get the most buy-in from, right? It's figuring out what will they buy into the most, putting some of that so they actually feel like they're heard, They feel a little bit more like actually like they are a part of their own programming because they believe that they have certain things that they think that make them better, right? Okay, well, how do you kind of put something with that to make them feel like, okay, he actually understands that this makes me feel better. He's putting that into my program. And then you can start to sprinkle all the other stuff in while keeping the foundation in mind, not getting too lost in all the different things, trying to steer them back to the direction of real foundation while, maybe sprinkling a couple of different things that makes them feel like, hey, we're doing something that, that we really believe in.
Yeah, I think coaches forget about that point in a multitude of ways, not just their summer training packet, but your athletes really know themselves best sometimes. And when they're going to be home and unsupervised, sometimes you really do have to meet them halfway and give them a little stake in the game, give them a little bit of ownership. The more autonomy we give them, the more likely they're going to do something. And over the summertime, I think most coaches would agree that they'd rather their athletes do something than nothing.
Correct. Absolutely. Anything too daunting, if you give them something that's just necessarily like too daunting, too complex, chances are you're just going to steer them away as compared to maybe just doing something relatively progressive. Like there's been times that I've even had athletes go back and say they work with some guy back home that they used to work with in high school. At least they're underneath some care. Like I could get a little bit bent out of shape about that, like, oh, he's going to work with somebody else. But the reality is he's just going to continue to improve. Now, obviously, sometimes I'll check him out as a coach to make sure that we're not doing anything insane. But 9 times out of 10, as long as it's relatively progressive and foundational, then reality is they probably improved a little bit because their training age is so small. So if you just stick to the foundation, you'll be fine.
I think Volt does a really good job at helping coaches with that engagement piece and with that accountability. You write this perfect program for over the summertime, and one guy goes off to another country, the next guy goes home and he's traveling, he's on the road, or he's playing some sort of travel ball. And their environment is constantly changing. So this perfect program no longer exists. And the athlete will take the lazy route and say, well, I can't do this because I don't have access to this. So where I think Volt plays a critical role in holding your athletes accountable and getting them to do something over the summertime is the unique aspect where we can adjust the program based on what's available to them. So the strength coach doesn't have to write 10 different programs for 10 different environments and 10 different settings. Strength coach can write one optimal program, and it can be catered to everyone on the team in their different environments just by adjusting their equipment settings and what they have available to them. And I think that's a huge time saver for strength coaches out there who are looking to develop these programs for their athletes with the different needs and different environments. So Brady, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope our listeners have taken away something valuable. I know you have a lot of valuable insights, and we're happy to have you on board. And should anybody have questions about Volt, check us out at voltathletics.com. You can email into support@voltathletics.com as well with any questions. And then feel free to follow us on all socials. And then you can also find Brady Welsh on Instagram as well if you have any questions or you want to follow some of the cool stuff he's doing. So Brady, thank you. And I'm sure we'll hear from you again soon.
All right. Thanks, Vic.